The story begins with an old ship being shown, which had been rebuilt by a group. There were about 7 people in this group. First, we are introduced to the group's leader, the president, along with his son Adam. There was also a gangster with his men who asked the president if he needed anything. The president replied politely that he was fine for now. Among the group was an elderly man collecting soil from the ship and placing it into a cup. A woman, there with her husband, noticed this and was curious. She asked the elderly man what he was doing, but he simply smiled and did not answer her. The president was given a special VIP cabin, which angered 3 models on board. They approached the gangster, demanding to know why the president was getting special treatment when they had paid just as much. The gangster shut them down, telling them to stay quiet and stop asking questions. Later, while everyone was eating, one of the passengers, who was sitting with his wife, started questioning why the food portions were so unfair. He was quickly silenced by the gangster's men, who warned him to stay quiet if he valued his life. Terrified, he left with his wife. Meanwhile, the elderly man continued to collect soil and tried to grow plants. This strange behavior left the woman puzzled. Elsewhere, the models continued to enjoy themselves while the president observed them from afar. The gangster approached the president and asked if he liked one of the models. If so, he said he could bring her to him. After some time, the ship came under attack while the couple was sleeping. The gangster killed the husband with a knife and threw his body into the sea. The next day, the woman woke up in a terrible state and rushed to the gangster, demanding to know where her husband was. Laughing, he told her that he had killed her husband and thrown him into the sea. Devastated, she ran to the ship's deck and tried to jump into the water, but the elderly man stopped her. The next morning, everyone woke up to the shocking realization that the ship was not moving forward, but was instead floating in the air. The elderly man watched this without surprise, which raised suspicion. As the woman followed him, she noticed that plants had begun to sprout from the soil he had collected. Meanwhile, the president confronted the captain, demanding to know what was happening. The captain, clearly shaken, admitted that he had no idea. The food supply was running out, and they had only enough for a few more days. This caused panic among the passengers, who started banging on the food storage door. The president tried to calm them, promising that everyone would get their share, but no one was willing to listen. The gangster took control, threatening the passengers with his gun. In a private meeting, the president and his group discussed their dwindling food supply. He instructed the captain to ensure that he and his son Adam received food, even if it meant others would go hungry. The captain refused, and the gangster threatened him as well. The passengers were given small portions of rice, which only fueled their anger. Some even attempted to steal food, but the gangster's men caught and killed them. As tensions continued to rise, the elderly man kept working on his mysterious plants. The situation on board worsened, and fights broke out over the little food that was left. Adam, disgusted by his father's greed, finally confronted him, but the chaos on the ship continued to spiral out of control. He says, "Son, if we want to survive, we have to kill them all. Just think of it as some drum or a movie scene and enjoy it." Meanwhile, the old man collects urine from Shiv's bathroom and pours it on the plants. When Ai sees this, she says, "Grandpa, what dirty work are you doing here? What difference does this make to the plants?" He doesn't reply but just smiles. She starts feeling nauseous, and seeing this, the old man checks on her and informs her that she's pregnant. Since her husband is no longer around, and she couldn't raise the child alone, she contemplates ending it. She picks up a knife and tries to harm herself, but at one point, the old man saves her life and the child's. Adam, who had figured out that she's pregnant and needs food, secretly saves some of his food and gives it to her. She reacts angrily, saying, "I don't even want to look at your face, let alone take food from your hands. You were also one of those who took advantage of me while I was unconscious." Adam begs her for forgiveness and pleads with her to take the food because she needs it. The old man takes the food from Adam's hands and gives it to her, which she eventually accepts. As evening fell, hunger gripped everyone, and they began to steal food from the cabin. But suddenly, the president showed up and yelled at them to return all the food they had taken. In fear, the travelers put the food back. A big man came to the lifeless body of a traveler, lifted it, and took it to his place. He dismembered the body, put the pieces into a machine, and turned them into fertilizer to make the plants grow faster. Seeing this, she felt disgusted, ran away, and began questioning whether the old man was insane to be doing such things. The captain throws a bomb into the president's cabin and seals the door to blow him up. However, the president manages to defuse the bomb just in time and saves himself. He comes out with a gun, points it at a prisoner, and demands to know where the bomb came from. Reluctantly, the captain reveals the information. The president, with his evil mind, gets an idea to use the bomb to eliminate all the travelers. Adam visits the woman again and says, "The old man has saved me several times, but I don't know why. Maybe there's a reason. He saved me when I tried to jump off the cliff, and when I tried to harm myself. The gang leader announces that they've placed food in a room for all travelers to take if they want. Seeing this, the people rushed to the room. Once they entered the room, the gang leader's men locked the doors and began dropping bombs inside. The travelers tried to escape, but the gang members attacked and killed them brutally. A war broke out and chaos ensued, with everyone turning against each other, fighting to the death. Some were injured and others died in the violent clashes. The president, holding everyone at gunpoint, demanded the captain's whereabouts. Meanwhile, the captain was pouring gasoline over all the food and setting it ablaze, as this was the cause of the conflict. A gang member eventually finds the captain and shoots him dead. He then tries to eat the burnt food but ends up vomiting because it was inedible. The old man decided to use the bodies for his purpose. He dismembered the corpses and gave a knife to the woman, urging her to do the same. At first, she refused, but after crying, she reluctantly agreed. The old man ground the corpses and used them as fertilizer for the plants. He also took care of the unborn, preparing the bodies in such a way as to ensure the seeds would grow into plants. The woman questions why he's doing all this but continues to help him plant. Meanwhile, Adam is furious and yells at his grandfather, saying, "See the outcome of your greed, everyone is dead, and the world is now just ashes. How will we survive? Where will we find food?" The grandfather replies, "I did the right thing, and food is crucial. If it ever comes to it, you should kill me for food." As time passes, we see that the seeds the old man planted have grown into chickens. The woman suggests, "Why don't we eat these chickens instead of human flesh?" For the first time, the old man, who had remained silent, speaks up. "If we eat these chickens now, what will we eat after that? We should just eat the eggs and let the chickens grow so we can have more." Eventually, a gang member tries to harm the chickens, but Adam stops him, saying, "You'll have to kill me first, just in time." The president shows up and shoots the gang leader. He wasn't killed, but was shot in the arm. The gang leader, in anger, shoots the president, who dies instantly. Adam, terrified, grabs the woman and flees while the gang member chases them. The old man returns to the president's body, places seeds and soil over the wound, and begins the cycle again. Eventually, the gang member catches up to Adam, and a fight ensues. Adam shoots him first in the chest and then in the head, killing him. Days later, we see that plants have grown from the corpses, and Adam, starving, asks the old man for food. Instead of giving him the chickens, the old man gives him small chunks of flesh. Surprised, Adam wonders where the old man is getting the meat from, as everyone had turned into plants. He asks the old man, who again responds with a smile. The twist reveals that whenever Adam asks for food, the old man cuts pieces of his own flesh to feed him. One day, the old man has an idea and cuts off his own head, placing it in a bucket, and then jumps into the ocean. His story ends there, though he only ever wanted the best for everyone. She starts to wonder why the old man did what he did. For a few days, they survive by eating the old man's flesh, but once that runs out, Adam decides to kill a chicken. However, Eve refuses, saying, "You can take any part of me, but don't kill these chickens." Grandpa raised them with so much effort, despite Eve's request. Adam insists and moves to kill the chicken. Before he can do so, Eve, wielding an axe, strikes him in the back. Adam's condition worsens and eventually he dies. It was now clear that the old man had sacrificed himself to save the chickens by offering parts of his body. In other words, he had to pay a heavy price to protect the lives of the chickens. Eve now sits there, feeding on Adam's flesh, completely alone in the wilderness. Days pass by, and she continues to live on the potatoes and melons that the old man had grown. The chickens also grow larger, and they start laying eggs. Soon, one of the chickens even hatches its own young, and Eve begins raising it in the camp. As time goes by, the plants around the camp grow bigger and thicker, turning the camp into a small jungle. Eve's child grows up as well, and one day, while she is harvesting plants, we are shown a scene of the inside and outside of the camp. The plants have turned into a massive forest, and we get a glimpse of the world beyond, which has been devastated. It feels like nature has taken back control of the world, as if humans no longer rule it. This story shows how, in desperate times, people become so blinded by their hunger and needs that they end up hurting one another. But even in such a harsh environment, there was one person who used his wisdom for the greater good. He knew the value of nature and ensured that it would continue to thrive even after his death, teaching those who remained how to survive.